8 mice, 4 males, 4 females, dropped into a metal world built to be a perfect paradise. Unlimited food, clean water that never ran dry, no predators, no disease, no cold, no hunger, nothing left to fear. For the first time, a population was simply handed everything it could ever need. 5 years later, every single one of them was dead. Not from starvation, not from sickness, not from anything you could point to and name. This is Universe 25. The scientist who built it spent the rest of his life trying to warn us about what he watched happen inside. His name was John Calhoun. The year was 1968 at the National Institute of Mental Health. And what unfolded in that box is one of the strangest things science has ever recorded. Because the mice didn't die from too little, they died from too much. Calhoun wasn't cruel. He loved animals. He'd spent 20 years studying them, chasing one simple question. If you removed every external threat, every reason an animal normally dies, what would a population do with a perfect world? So he built one. He called it Universe 25 because it was his 25th attempt to find out. Picture a square pen about 8 feet across, with walls too tall and too smooth to climb. Inside, stacked up the walls like a tiny apartment city, were 256 cozy nesting boxes, feeding stations where dozens could eat at once, water for thousands, soft paper for nesting, always restocked. The temperature stayed perfect. The waste was cleared away, and there was no such thing as a predator or a winter or a plague. This single box could comfortably hold almost 4,000 mice. On the 9th of July, 1968, Calhoun placed his 8 founders inside and closed the lid on the outside world. And at first, paradise worked exactly the way you'd hope. For 100 quiet days, the mice did little but settle in and find their feet. Then the first pups were born, and the population did what a population in heaven does. It exploded. Every 55 days, the number of mice doubled. 8 became 16, 16 became 32, then 64, 128, and on and on. This was the golden age. The strongest males claimed the best ground and defended it. Females nested, nursed, and raised healthy, well-cared-for young. The colony organized itself into neighborhoods, into a clear order, into roles. Every mouse seemed to know its place. But here is the first strange detail, and Calhoun never forgot it. The mice did not spread out into all that lovely empty space. They piled together. Some feeders were mobbed with crowds, while others, a few feet away, sat nearly untouched. He had seen this before, in his earlier experiments with rats, and he'd given it a name that stuck: the behavioral sink. The simple pull to be near other bodies grew so strong it overrode everything else, even the instinct to walk to an emptier spot to eat. They had a whole world. They chose to crush into one corner of it. At the time, it looked like a harmless quirk. It was actually the first crack. By day 315, the population had reached 620. And then, almost overnight, the growth slowed to a crawl. The reason was not a lack of space. There was space everywhere. The reason was that paradise had quietly run out of one thing: jobs. In a normal world, when too many young come of age, the extras leave. They strike out, claim new ground, start again somewhere else. But here, there was nowhere to go. The walls saw to that. So a whole generation of healthy young adults grew up inside a society that had no room left for them. No territory to claim, no role to fill, no purpose the older mice were willing to hand over. And this is where it began to break, not in the body, but in the behavior. The young males who couldn't win a place simply stopped trying. They gathered in listless pools in the middle of the floor, doing nothing at all. Now and then, they'd erupt into sudden, pointless violence, then go limp and take the next attack without even defending themselves. But here is the part that truly disturbed Calhoun, the part still argued over today. The mothers began to fail. In a healthy colony, a mother guards her nest and her pups fiercely. Here, the structure that once protected them had dissolved. Stressed and left unguarded, mothers grew aggressive toward their own young. They abandoned pups mid-feed. They scattered litters across the floor. Some were lost before they ever opened their eyes. A mother's most basic instinct to care was quietly switching off. And once the young stopped being raised properly, the ending was already written. The colony just didn't know it yet. On day 560, the population peaked. 2,200 mice, in a world built for nearly 4,000. It would never grow again. The last few pups were born around day 600. After that, almost nothing. And out of the wreckage of that society came a new kind of mouse. Calhoun gave them a haunting name. He called them the beautiful ones. They were the generation raised in the chaos, never properly mothered, never socialized, never able to find a role. And they answered by withdrawing from life completely. They never fought. They never courted. They never mated. They did only 4 things. They ate, they drank, they slept, and they groomed themselves for hours. Because they never fought, they carried no scars. Their coats were flawless. They were, on the outside, perfect. That is why he called them beautiful. They looked like the healthiest animals in the box, but something essential was gone. They had the bodies of mice, and almost none of the behavior. Calhoun put it chillingly. He said their spirit had died first, and here is the detail that closes the door. A colleague took some of these mice out, moved them to a fresh, half-empty paradise with everything they'd need to start over. They couldn't. They had all but lost the ability to build a society or to raise young. The damage didn't reverse. The last new life in Universe 25 came around day 920. After that, it was only a matter of waiting. One by one, the beautiful ones grew old in their perfect, empty world. And then there were none. Now, here is where almost everyone tells the story wrong. For 50 years, Universe 25 has been passed around as a warning about overcrowding. Too many bodies, too small a space, the horror of the crowd. But go back and read what Calhoun actually concluded, and that isn't it at all. Remember, the box was never full. At its most crowded, a fifth of the nest sat completely empty. The mice had more food than they could eat and more water than they could drink, right to the end. They were never starving. They were never truly out of room. When he was asked directly, Calhoun said it plainly. Density itself was not the main problem. The problem was roles. When you remove death and everyone survives, you don't just get more bodies, you get far more bodies than there are meaningful roles to fill. And an animal or a person with no role to play, no place in the structure, no purpose the group actually needs, begins to come apart. The fighting, the withdrawal, the failed mothers, the beautiful ones, none of it was caused by a lack of space. It was caused by a lack of somewhere to belong. Calhoun had a name for it. The death of the body he called the second death. But the first death, the one that came first, the one that doomed them, was the death of the spirit, the loss of the will and the ability to do the complex things a life is built from, to connect, to compete, to care, to raise what comes next. The bodies were fine for a long while after, but the society was already gone. Calhoun spent the rest of his life insisting his mice were not a prophecy. We are not mice. We have something no mouse has, what he called conceptual space, ideas, imagination, the ability to invent new roles, new purposes, whole new worlds to belong to, out of nothing but thought. When the doom criers turned his work into a simple story about too many people, he was horrified. He thought that reading wasn't just wrong, it was dangerous. His real warning was quieter and stranger. It was this: comfort is not the same as meaning. A life with every need met can still be a life with nothing to do that matters. He had watched a perfect world give its inhabitants everything, and slowly remove the one thing that had kept them whole, a reason to be needed. So maybe sit, for a second, with the part that's hard to shake off. We have spent all of human history fighting to remove the threats, the hunger, the cold, the danger, the struggle, and we were right to. That struggle was cruel. But Calhoun's mice are a strange little reminder that the struggle may also have been holding us together, that a role to play and a place to belong might not be luxuries at all. They might be the whole point. 8 mice were handed a perfect world. They didn't lose it to a flood, or a famine, or a fight. They lost it because, one quiet day, there was simply nothing left for any of them to do.